Oh man, it's time for another episode of No Label Live, the show all about labels and how they can be your biggest adversity or your biggest advantage. The choice is yours. Each week we bring on inspiring guests to share their story about how labels have impacted their life and the work that they do. So let's strap in and join this conversation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my friend Keeya. Keeya, the first question, I'm diving straight in. What is the least talked about but most important part of your story?
All right. I think a lot of emphasis is placed on my suffering, but the least talked about part is probably the amount of fun and connections I get to make. I've made through chronic illness and disability. Um, for example, for a year I had really bad insomnia. Due to prednisone, I was, running around at 2 a.m. And one thing that came out of it is I made a bunch of friends in Australia over the internet. And I've got to, it's not always fun. It's definitely painful. I'm not minimizing that at all. But I've been able to latch on to opportunities to make things funny, to laugh with other people, and really cherish relationships. I don't know if I would have done that if I hadn't gone through these horrible experiences.
And what chronic illness do you deal with on a daily basis?
So I have mast cell disease, which means my mast cells, everyone has mast cells, they're white blood cells. My mast cells release chemicals all the time that cause allergic reactions. Certain activities cause my mast cells to release more chemicals, and it can become life-threatening. Fragrance is a huge trigger that causes life-threatening reactions such as throat swelling and pain all over my body and damage to my organs. So that is a big part of disability for me because fragrance is everywhere, whether it's air fresheners or people's perfume or detergent. It's everywhere. So, and then I have two other conditions. I have hyperpots. So when I stand up, my heart rate and my blood pressure goes up. It feels like I'm going to pass out and pee my pants at the same time, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then I have Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which affects my connective tissue, and I can dislocate or hyperextend my ligaments and tendons. So even like throwing ball with my dog can be a little dangerous.
Man, just in listening to all that, the first thing that jumped in my mind was for people who are joining for the first time, you may not know this about me, but I worked in the disability community for almost a decade, and we have all those signs that say this is a fragrance-free zone, and this is one of the reasons why this is so important, but nobody actually ever talks about why that sign exists anywhere. So, can you dive a little bit deeper into like what that looks like in the real world for people who are just like, I don't understand why this sign is so important?
Yeah. So when I started getting really sick, I was working full time and I had an open office. So just a bunch of desks and like 30 people. And I started reacting to different people's perfumes and fragrances. One person liked to put on fragrance lotion in the afternoon, and I would react right away. And one time I actually needed to go to the ER and have IVs, and it can get so bad that you need an EpiPen. And so I worked with HR to build awareness about a scent-free policy, but it was still hard because people would forget, and there were just so many people in that area. So they moved me. It usually ends up in isolating people, unfortunately. So they moved me to a separate office that was enclosed with no other people, but I still had to go to the bathroom. So we have signs on the bathroom that say this is a scent-free, inclusive environment. And I think it's really important that people understand this is a disability, just like mobility disability or other kinds of disabilities. It's covered under ADA in the US. So unfortunately, sometimes people forget. It happens. For me, it has. The stakes are very high when someone forgets, but having open conversations and understanding that when you choose these products, you are affecting other people. A recent international study found that about 1/3 of the people in the US have a fragrance sensitivity. Doesn't mean a disability to my level where it's life-threatening, but it does affect other people.
Yeah, I would wonder where I fall on that spectrum of sensitivity to fragrance for sure. Thanks so much for sharing that, because I know that people walk around and they wonder that all the time. And earlier you talked about like the ability to have fun, and that living with a disability, the way that I took it, shouldn't disqualify you from having fun and having laughter and joy and all those things in your life. So what are some things that bring you joy and bring you fun in your life?
Well, I have two toy poodles that have very intense personalities. One is a service dog who helps me with mast cell disease, and he is my best little friend, but he loves to kill toy rabbits when I'm away. He likes to delimb them one by one, so I have a lot of fun sharing his violent tendencies on Facebook when I get a chance. And then I have another toy poodle named Quixote, who I call my personal trainer, because he doesn't give a crap if I'm chronically ill or disabled. We're going to go move and we're going to do things anyway. And he goes out and he has me meet people, even though I don't want to talk to anyone. And we compete in agility, and I chase him around for about 1 minute, and I feel like I'm going to pass out and I can't breathe. But it's the time of his life, and we have a lot of fun doing it. And he has a great sense of humor, because when I don't do the right thing on the course, he barks at me, and he makes everyone who's looking at me know that I was wrong. So I think it's just so important to have things in your life that distract you from pain if you have chronic pain. I have built friendships since my diagnosis of people who like to laugh at jokes. And, I do think about mortality a lot. I think about pain a lot, but it's only made my sense of humor stronger, and looking for those opportunities to laugh, because it gives me a break, and it allows me to connect with other people, whether they're disabled or not. Everyone enjoys laughter in a hard situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, we all have hard situations, and we all have circumstances that are difficult. And I think if nobody can see that currently, uh, we got some looking around to do. What's the greatest gift that your dogs have given you?
They don't care about my ability. They don't judge me. I mean, Quixote barks at me and tells me to get off the couch, but I can always throw a treat at him and he will be like, okay, that's fine. But, you know, doing agility with my dog, it's a physical challenge that I didn't know if I would be able to do. And he takes the focus off of getting the first place or, you know, having the fastest time and just enjoying the experience. One of the things with the dogs, you learn they have shorter lifespans and you learn to appreciate those relationships. My dogs are both 10 years old right now. And so I can see them slowing down and I just have so much compassion for them. And through that, I'm learning to have compassion for myself. You know, if my dog is in any pain, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. What can I do? If I'm in pain, I'm not as nice. So I'm learning through my dog's bodies how to treat my body and also focus on what matters. It's just having fun and eating food, according to Quixote.
Having fun and eating food. All right, so when you're having fun, what food are you eating when you're having fun?
Well, food is hard for people with mast cell disease because we react to so many things, and I have a very small variety of foods. Rotisserie chicken, I think the poodles and I both all agree that the rotisserie chicken is a winner. I kind of eat like a dog, the basic whole foods, the meats and the rice and the potatoes. So I think they might be in on this. They might be facilitating this diet.
Well, guys, if you don't know, Keeya on social media, she makes lots of memes. So I hope this this interview adds to some new memes that can be created. Man, so people get kind of a feel when you weren't like me. I was born with my disability, but you discovered your disability later in life. And what was that transition like from, I'm just going to say it the way that I know how, from going to normal to now living with this disability?
Yeah, I've always had health challenges, and I've probably always lived with these conditions. It's just that they got out of control and got to the point I couldn't walk anymore, and I needed to get disability parking. That's what it came down to, and so I realized that with the disability parking, that kind of makes me a disabled person, and it got to the point where the doctor was like, this isn't gonna change. Like, you need permanent disability parking. Also, the same situation with my office. I needed to hold on to my job and hold on to my health care. And so I had to file ADA accommodation paperwork in order to get a safe environment to work in. So my diagnosis allowed me to call myself disabled. I was probably disabled in some ways the whole time. I think for me, that identity is really important to empower myself to continue to do things that I love to do. You know, to be able to go to the grocery store and get food with instead of just staying at home because it's too painful and I have to walk across the parking lot. In the dead of winter when your face freezes off, there's that part in Minnesota. So Yeah, I don't feel like I had a choice, but also I feel like it's a very important tool that people with chronic illness can use, and that uh, there's not a lot of educational awareness about what that can look like. My disabilities can change on a daily basis. My sensitivity to fragrance is always the same, but my mobility can change. Sometimes I can't walk across the room. Sometimes I can chase a poodle. It varies based on the amount of pollen in the air, or what I did this day before, if I'm reacting to food. There are dozens of variables. So
Man, and so I think that's so important just for the fact of for anybody who has a disability and somebody who doesn't have one that's coming in contact with us for maybe the first time. I think this part of the conversation is important because you're getting us at a moment in time, just like we're getting you at a moment in time. And that's what makes us both human, right? Uh, we always get looked at as different. Guess what? We're all different. And we're responding in moments in time with each other. And I think the main thing that I got there was like being able to show up with compassion for others. I think that's so important, and it's a thing that we don't often talk about. But um, I heard you in one thing that we were in together talk about how disability gave you a sense of freedom. Can you touch on that?
yeah, my diagnosis and then identifying as a disabled person taught me that, I have these challenges all the time, but just showing up is the most important thing I can do. And I just think I've seen so many opportunities just by showing up and setting the bar kind of low, and having no expectations. And then instead, my mind has been blown with the opportunities to connect with people that I never would have connected with before, and to work on things that I didn't know I care about, that I care about, to improve other people's lives, to make them laugh. I think disability really helped me to focus on what I'm good at. And I do believe that everyone has talents, whether that's kindness or making art or making people laugh. Disability made me focus on what I can do, and I've put more energy into that and prioritized that. And so I've started writing, and I've started creating jokes, and these things didn't exist before. And I don't know, if I hadn't had the opportunity to be stuck at home and not able to leave my bed and to have this morbid sense of humor, I don't know if that would have existed. I've met wonderful people that I would not have reached out to otherwise.
And ladies and gentlemen, just so we're clear, this was going on before COVID for Keeya. She was at home and isolated before COVID was ever a thing. So just keep that in mind. I think that's a very important part of this part of the conversation. So you've discovered things about yourself that you never knew existed once you had that diagnosis, or that label was placed on you. What would you say you are better at than anybody in your world?
I think am very good at communicating about weird subjects and making it palatable to other people. So one of the things that was really important to me when I learned about mast cell, when I got my diagnosis, I didn't know anybody with mast cell disease. And no one had heard of mast cells, even though we all have them. If you have seasonal allergies, you have mast cells that release chemicals like histamine into your body. So I was like, I'm going to teach the world what a mast cell is. And it's a very complicated cell that releases all this crap that can make you like turn upside down and turn into a different thing. It's a crazy disease. But I think communicating that in a way that appeals to people without the disease and doesn't scare them away is one of my gifts.
Yeah, man, I think that communication is huge in anything that we do, and being able to communicate about something that very few people have awareness of is so important. And even so, cerebral palsy is a much better known disability, I would guess, than mast cell disease. But people, from my experience, it's a lot easier when you say, "Oh yeah, it's a brain injury," and they're like, "Oh really?" Like, I know people for a long time, when you say it that way, they're like, "Holy crap. I really had no idea." Like, it's a physical thing, but it's actually a brain injury. That's why it's a physical thing. So I think that the ability to communicate whatever your disability is, because I know many of you watching have disabilities, that's so important. And the ability to talk about it openly and how it affects you is probably one of the best ways to advocate for yourself, to stand up for your needs. And one of the hardest things, I think, is to not take it personal when people don't understand, especially if it's something that's new to you. So I talked about the label. So when you think of the label of disabled or disability, when it says, "Hello, my name is," and it had disability on there, or my label is disability, how would you define that for someone?
For me, it's just someone with different life experience that wants to be included. I mean, I just want to be able to show up the best I can and have opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's so just those two words alone, included and opportunities. I think anybody who's watching can relate to that, whether you have a disability or not. I know that those are two things in your life that uh, are very important, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from. We all want to feel included, and we all want to be given opportunities to show our gifts and our talents. So yes, no, and expand on this any way that you want to. But when I say people with disabilities can be leaders, yes, no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is my story, is that in 2014, I ran for city council. I had always, since high school, I had wanted to run for elected office. I had been working on it since high school. I had a pipeline dream. I went to college and studied political science, and then I studied public policy. I worked at the state capitol. I became a lobbyist. I checked all the boxes. I worked in volunteer organizations. I was president of nonprofits. I was chair of my city's park board. Did it all, right? Well, then I got sick and I couldn't walk. I couldn't figure out how I was going to make dinner. I couldn't figure out how I was going to pay my medical bills. Like, the world came crashing down on me, and for a while I thought I was going to fix it, right? No, I'm permanently disabled. I have these challenges. And I started to think about those city council meetings. They can be 5 hours or more long. Just like sitting here right now is challenging for me. I'm in pain. I have like rashes from just having this conversation. I will be laying on my couch for the rest of the day and watching TV, and that's okay because I enjoy doing this. But a city council meeting for 5 hours is just not feasible for me. Door knocking around my city is not feasible for me. And I lost my park board position because I couldn't show up to the meetings because my body was unreliable. It was very traumatic. I worked very hard to get there, and that was my dream. What I will say is that my dream was short-sighted, and I am doing more about things I got, more unique opportunities about things I really care about than I could have imagined. I, of course, never imagined being disabled or having mast cell disease, let alone hearing what a mast cell was. But I have connected with people again from around the world about mast cell disease, but also in other areas of chronic illness communities, disability communities. I have learned how to talk about mast cell disease, and I just started writing and improving other people's lives through making them laugh and spreading awareness about mast cell disease, writing things that people can share with their families to help communicate what they're going through. I can't think of a bigger honor than that. I mean, sitting and listening to a presentation about how we're going to make a water fountain in a park versus, I mean, I did that for a while. Art's important and stuff, but communicating feelings that someone else has not been able to articulate or can't at that point in their life is such an honor. And it's not easy. Like, I'm able to sit up right now. There was months that I had a cerebral spinal fluid leak. I could not sit up. I could not take a sip of water without being in so much pain that I needed to throw up. And it felt like in that moment, I would never be a leader again. Things change. When you're in that moment, it feels like that. But I needed just sitting in that pain and that experience and reaching out to people and sharing my experience. That is leadership. If you're helping people, that is leadership. Whether that's, just listening to someone or sending a card, technology allows us to connect with so many people. I just think anyone can be a leader and have an impact that you can't even imagine.
Man, you hit on a couple of things there for me. So, first thing that got my attention was the idea of feeling broken. And if you're feeling that way, first, know that that's okay to feel that way, because you're probably in an experience where that just feels like what's going on. but I want to make sure you know that you're not broken and you don't need to be fixed. Like, there's no need to be fixed. So often, that's the way that the world treats disability as a whole. And that is not, in my experience, that's not helpful to lead that as part of the conversation, because that creates so much like undue suffering for somebody to be sitting feeling like they need to be fixed. Um, but I love the idea of that you said we may not know exactly what it is in the moment, but just being able to share your story can be that gift that you're given to someone else. Um, and I think of it, the funny thing is, um, in the world of disability, when you have people who are born with disabilities or people who acquire disabilities, uh, guess what? You can be 60 years old, and I've got a 34-year jump on you on what it's like to live with a disability. So we all have different experiences, and we all have different levels of being able to communicate whatever our needs are, but we can share in those experiences with each other. Um, and I do think it's a gift to just be able to do that. Um, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure and touch on before the interview is over?
No, I just, you know, I hope that if anyone's going through a hard time, that they know that I care, that what they're going through. I know you, Nathan, care. That things get really rough and scary, and just continue to reach out. There are people in this world that have gone through similar things, or at least have seen the scariness, and they can be your friend through that time. And if you're not going through the scary thing right now, look for those opportunities to help other people and be a leader. You absolutely have talents and ways to contribute to this world.
Yeah. And anybody who is living with a disability and right now they feel like the world may be against them, or they feel like they really feel that non-inclusive vibe in their world, what I challenge you to do is to remember that you may be the first person with a disability that somebody meets in the world. And yes, it's 2020, and there's been ADA for a long time now, but it's not perfect. And we spend a lot of time getting angry at people for not understanding, but we don't, I think, give a lot of like compassion in the fact that you may be the first person with whatever your disability is that somebody's ever seeing in their life. And to remember, if you don't know, you don't know. And what a beautiful gift you have to give someone a better awareness of what's going on in the world just by the way that you show up. So if you're getting angry with someone, take a moment to pause and say, is this how I want to represent my condition right now in this moment? And sometimes, guess what? You're probably still going to get mad and you're still going to yell at people. But I would just challenge you to take that pause to say that to yourself, because you could be shifting the paradigm of what it looks like for someone to understand something that's much bigger than even you. So
finding people to share that anger with is so important.
okay.
Finding the people who understand your experience so that you can let those feelings are valid. If you're angry, that's how you feel. Whether or not you express it to the person who does not understand is a choice. But, I go home and I swear a lot because it's a known painkiller and it makes your body feel better. So I go home, I swear a lot, and then I write something really horrible about how angry I am. And then I don't share it on the internet. And then I write something funny so that more people relate to it, and I post that on the internet. So, but getting those feelings out, they're completely valid. But going on a rampage in front of your entire office is probably not the best idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact that you take it and you figured out that more people can relate to the funny than would relate to the syndrome that I call the angry disabled person syndrome, where people just are like, oh, it's just another person with a disability mad at the world type deal. And that happens a lot. And trust me, I'm sitting here as one of the people. I learned that from experience, and I learned that puts a very low ceiling on you when you express that all the time. That's where you get labeled, and labels are real. They exist, and they can either hold us down or they can move us way further ahead. So that's why I share that with you guys. And this is the most disability heavy show I think we've had probably forever. But I think it's so powerful. So the last question that I have for you is, what does no label defines me mean to you? But before that, let me ask, where can people connect with you?
So I have a blog called Hell's Bells and Mast Cells. So hellsbellsandmastcells.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. That's where you'll find my very witty jokes. Yeah.
And you've got a Patreon as well, correct?
Yeah, I do. So hosting the website and making the graphics is not free. So I try to have Patreon support to help me do those things. As a disabled person with chronic illness, I am not made of money. So I appreciate any support to allow me to continue to spread awareness.
Absolutely. So make sure you guys check that out. We'll put all that stuff in the link for the show notes and everything, so you can connect with Keeya that way. And then, so back to no label defines me. What does that mean for you?
For me, it means I can call myself whatever I want to on a particular day, and I can change that the next day. I use disability as a tool in order to keep my job and to be able to do the things in daily life that I need to, but I don't have to broadcast that to anyone. I don't have to identify with it on a certain day if I don't feel like it. or I can be incredibly proud and blast the entire internet with it. It can change. You can call yourself whatever you want. I just think showing up is the most important part, and sharing those talents and stories that only you have, sharing them with the world is so important.
Absolutely. You have gifts, you have talents, you have skills, and you have a perspective that no one else has been given. And if you are sitting there and you're like, well, I don't have a disability at this moment, I just want to leave you for this episode. Something we used to always say in the disability community as a whole says, everybody's welcome, and our community doesn't discriminate, because at some point, guess what? You're joining. You may not know it now, but at some point, you're joining the community. So there's nothing wrong with that. And you have the power to choose how you view things. Keeya, thanks so much for joining. I want to acknowledge you for being open and being vulnerable to sharing. And man, if you got any value from this, if you've learned something new, make sure and share it with somebody in your life, because chances are somebody in your life needs to see this episode. And with that, you can catch us again next Friday for another episode of No Label Live. I hope you enjoyed this episode of No Label Live. If you did, share it with a friend and tag me. Let me know your thoughts about the episode. Connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Loneliness Coach. You can also become a member of the No Label fam by joining our Facebook community. Let a friend know that they are more than a label. They matter, and they are one step away from their success. Remember, my friends, be patient, be diligent, and never quit.